Hello, Jamie here from Inky and Scrappy, sharing with you today a platform pop-up with a Swish-n-Pop add-on feature. It's twice the pop, if you will. This is my first actual Swish-n-Pop card. I don't take things slow, I guess. And so I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to work. So I did start with a piece of scratch paper or scrap paper that was kind of the same height and width as the platform pop-up to try to give me a little bit of, some playtime before I figured out, so I could figure out if this was going to work before I fully committed to punching the holes in the platform pop-up, which really it wouldn't have mattered because I could have just glued it together with holes and then nobody would have known. But I wanted to make sure that it was going to mostly work, as in it would stay within the confines of the platform pop-up and middle piece there, and I didn't have to worry about it, not working just because it was too long to go through the bottom, or if I needed to, cheat it a little bit here or there. And so I'm just making sure that it is gonna sit in there. And I started out with it in the first hole, and I end up switching that towards the end. And I'm gonna be honest, this did not go as easily and as smoothly as I wanted it to. I got frustrated a couple of times and walked away. It happens. It's, part of trying something that's not tested, I guess. And so it does come with its headaches from time to time. I'm just figuring out where I want my bubbles to be. And so some things that I, had thought through before I had, cut stuff and figured other things out is I did know that I wanted it on the back side of it because I want the little duck to pop out from behind the bubbles. If you weren't having your function or your feature that was going to pop up and swish behind anything, you could put it on the front possibly. I just found, on the back, in my head, I could play with it a little bit more because it would be, front and center on that back piece before I combine them. I don't know if it really mattered, besides the fact that I wanted it behind the bubbles. The other thing it was when I put the bubbles on, I made sure that I had cut it so it was going to be the full width of that middle piece there. I did not want it to be shorter, that it would get stuck or caught, or the pull tab and the swish arm would get stuck on it. I wanted it to be a flush piece. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Because I'm pretty sure if you use like the T on the front and cut it, your brads and your swish arm might get caught on it. And I was trying to limit the catching on that mechanism because I knew I couldn't do a whole lot for foam tape in there. And so, this was where I had realized that it wasn't going to work like I was thinking, because I realized that Swish-n-Pop, the pull tab part had to be able to move within when the platform pop-up was folded up. And so, this was my first one, so I wasn't exactly sure how that was going to work. And so I'm trying to decide here if by moving it and doing it so I could actually have the pull tab above the side of the platform pop-up, like I could have put a bubble on the end of it and put pull here on it, would have worked as well for this one. And so I'm trying to decide if this is gonna, work as planned. And then I did end up cutting, I think I cut it before this because I was frustrated. And so I had cut the full tab because that was where I had kind of decided, okay, I'm going to set it off to the side and think about it. So I had cut it and then I had taped it back together because I was like, no, that's not going to work. And so I was like, I'm going to put the rest of the card together. If the pull tab doesn't end up working, it's fine. I will just have the duck that's there, and it's not going to do the cool thing I want it to do. So here I am adding that piece. And I'm using the Lawn Fawn bubble border, I think it's Bubbles border die. And then the stamp sets that I used were the Rub-a-Dub-Dub and the Lawn Fawn Scripty Bubbles for the word happy. And then for coloring, I took out my hoo-hoos in my pastels. So I took out the the lightest blue that I had in that set, the lightest purple, the lightest yellow, and the lightest pink. And then I just went in a Roy G. Biv order, so I wasn't going to get mud. I was going to get new colors wherever they overlapped. And it just gave them that little bit of, because I did pearlescent vellum on the bubbles. And this kind of gives it that pearlescent, shimmer without actually having a shimmer. And you could go over them with a Spectrum Noir glitter brush. But I didn't, this was my boy card, so I didn't exactly want to do too much glitter on it. I did do a little, but I didn't want to go overboard with my glitter. And there you can tell, it's just a very soft, subtle, light coloring to the bubbles. And there were all of my images colored, and no, I did not use them all. I have extras. And I'm just cutting that bubble piece in half there, so it looks like my bubbles are on the floor. And then I'm just taking the other part of that one and using it as my back one. And my cardstock here was actually like a glittered, it's not glittered, it's from envelopes.com. It's one of their Luxor, I think it's Lux papers, but it's their metallic type one. So it has a metallic sheen to it. I think that one was Gin Fizz or something like that. I have Gin Fizz and I can't remember the other one. I have two white ones that have a little bit of that iridescent shimmer on them. And so here I had taken some Big Mama foam tape in the center. I knew it was going to work because I have done a gift card holder in the middle, so I knew that it would support some bulk in the middle there. I didn't leave, I had that bottom piece was a little bit too much, and I thought that my pull tab and Swish-n-Pop arm caught on it just a little bit, and I didn't want it to catch anywhere. And I will say, as I played with this, the more I played with it, the easier and better it moved. So it was a little tight at first once it was all put together, but it was working just fine by the time they got it, because I probably played with it 557 times. And then they played with it another 552 times. So it swishes pretty good. So to make sure this stayed together, I did add some glue on top of my foam adhesive. You could probably go with a fairly, like a thinner, one of your thinnest foam adhesives in here if you don't have Big Mama foam tape. Big Mama foam tape is just like super thin. And it gave me enough wiggle room because, I mean, the center of your platform pop-up isn't exactly like hard together. It's got a little bit of flex room in there, so it's not, I didn't see an issue with it, and I made sure that my brads were flattened, so the tops were flattened in that part pretty good, but they had a little bit of wiggle room on the backside. And so here I'm trying to put this together, and I had decided that that pull tab arm would work by folding it if it would come out the top. So they just have to put the top down, push the pull tab into the pop-up after they popped it up. And it kind of had that little gap up on top there. Because here you can see, yep, I'm just trying to wiggle it, make it work a little bit. And there is that gap there. And I wasn't loving the gap there. But it works. So at least my Swish-n-Pop worked in my platform pop-up. At least this was my thought process at the moment. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was still gonna work. So I'm just making my final adjustments on my pull tab here, or my swish arm here. And then I added bubbles to my bathtub. And then I'm going to add my little ducky here. And sorry I am off screen some. I needed to get close to my face. You know, I don't have a sight problem close up, but it's just easier to see when it's right there. It's one of the struggles of getting older. I don't know. So I'm just decorating my little front scene here, trying to layer it all in. And I thought about adding the other little ducks in front, but this is my brother's first child, so I didn't think I needed siblings yet. Although, you know, I did ask him for a niece, you know, after my nephew's here. And then I'm just taking a glittered cardstock using the set from the platform pop-up, the ribbon, or the border and the ribbon bows. And I decided that the glitter one just got too lost on top of the other glitter, so I switched the color on that front bow to a light purple. It goes with my other items in the bathtub scene, kind of tying them all together. I'll just add, I like to round the bow a little bit so it gives it a little bit of pop. Does it stay after it's been in a card? I don't know if you can tell that it's been. I probably should put a little bit of a foam tape behind the little pop so they stay, but for future reference, right? And then I'm adding this in, and I would definitely say the adhesive works a little bit better than the glue at this point, because it just was not working for me that day. I didn't hold it long enough or something. I did get it in the end, and so I'm trying to decide on a sentiment, and I liked the happy, and I just hadn't figured out what else I was going to put on there. I didn't have anything lawn fawn that was, you know, for a gender reveal type of card, and so, or just a congratulations on expecting card. So this was kind of, you know, I was like, oh, happy, and then I did shop my stash later and find, because I was like happy, and then I was like happy new baby or happy something, and it just wasn't what I don't know. I couldn't figure out what my sentiment was going to be. So I am going to add the little pull tab thing here. And so I have it in the start, like where I want the little ducky position, or where the finish position, and that's where I cut it. And then the start position, it kind of sticks out. And so I will add the little arrow. I guess it's kind of backwards, because when you push it in, or when you pull it out on this one, it actually goes back to a starting spot, I think. So when you push it in, it does the flying into the bathtub. I don't know. I guess if my duck was going the other way, I could get him coming out of the bathtub. That would work. And so as I was doing that, I realized that it's not very stable on that top piece, because there isn't any adhesive in that one. Is it the right hand? The upper right corner when you're looking at it. And so I added this stabilizer piece. So it's just gonna, I figured after it's opened and it's popped up, they can put the stabilizer piece on. I mean, you can't close it again, or in my thought, you weren't going to be able to close it again. And so I was like, well, it will work, you know, so at least it has a little bit more stability once it's put together. And so it was around here that I was getting ready to take pictures after I had done the stabilizer, after I had done this piece. So I went back in and I finished with the little one. I made it look like the other bubbles. And then I just hand cut that one out because I don't have a die cut for that one. And so it was around here that I realized that, oh, I can close it, you know, because I held it kind of closed with my fingers when I folded it down because I was afraid that the arm was going to like get lost in there. And I realized that when the tab is all the way out in this, so this is the second hole position. When the tab is all the way out, it actually will fold up and stay in that little slot area without going out, and then it comes right back up. So there is a little bit of wiggle room. I will show that here in a little bit. So I did end up closing that stabilizer piece, which means that I wouldn't have had to cut that tab. I could have ended up doing a little slit in it and put the pull tab through it that way, and then I wouldn't have had to do all the extra little steps of stabilizing that side of the platform pop-up, and I wouldn't have had it done the other part. But I still might do, you know, a top piece or something to help stabilize it. But this ended up working. It was probably easier to do it this way with that top stabilizer piece, so I didn't have to worry about my slit being in the proper spot. It just kind of naturally found its right spot and went that way. So that is my platform pop-up with a swish and pop feature. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you continue to play with all of those toys that you have. Thank you so much for subscribing, for those that subscribe, and we will see you next